Okay, so last Friday I gave my presentation on teacher control, so I'm going to be talking about the other subjects today. So the first one's democracy in the classroom. So this is all about giving students a voice, teacher enforcement of rules, making sure both student and teacher are being accountable to them, having specific things like class meetings and student choice integrated into the classroom, things like that. Some students might take advantage of freedom, but overall help students stay engaged and feel safe in the classroom. So the next subject was, I'm going to move this, motivation. So there are 4 different types. Intrinsic is what we want students to have. It's when they feel motivated just because they're interested and they like the subject. So that's what we want to try and do by, incorporating things that students are interested in or having them pick their books, things like that. Identified as seeing the value is when they see the value in doing something even if they don't like it or it's negative. Introjected is when they do it to avoid feelings of guilt, and then external is when they want to avoid like a negative stimulus or consequence. So the next topic is preventative, and so this is all about proactive management. I feel like we as teachers all want to be proactive to discipline instead of reactive, because if we set up our classroom in that way or have a good plan, then we won't have as many undesired behaviors and won't have to be constantly on our students, which doesn't really work either. So I think it's important to have a plan and to stick with it, to work on it like during the summer, and then like meet your kids and figure it out and then really stick to it. Same with procedures, making sure you practice them over and over. Students, for example, don't push in their chairs when lining up for recess. Make them go back and do it before they can go out, just things like that. So they're constantly doing it and they just know it, and you can like do the signal or whatever it is and they just do it right away. That's the goal. So doing that a ton. Another huge thing from preventative is just no power struggle, not fighting with kids at all or doing that, getting into that, because we know it's not helpful. So there's better ways to deal with discipline. So we also need to make sure we treat students the same discipline wise. So if like 2 students do the same thing, like dropping a book, we tell them both to pick it up, because students would pick up if we didn't give the same disciplines out to all the kids for the same behavior, and they'd be like, what the heck? So gotta make sure we do that. I'm just moving my slides again. So for intervention, there's 3 different types we learned about in all our cute foldables throughout the semester. So there's mild response, which is mild, like ignoring or giving a teacher a look or moving something. Moderate, which is like removing something that's desired or like negative consequence, and chronic misbehavior, which is the more crazy, like fighting, cheating, lying, those sort of things. And then learning environment, already talked about this a little bit, but it's super important for students to feel safe. They're not going to learn if they don't have that need met, and so the classroom needs to be organized and things need to be where they always are, so students can find them and they're accessible, like having materials at their eye level. Traffic flow needs to be monitored, so like they know where to go when they're going to their desk or they're lining up, things like that, just so students don't bump into each other and that it's like physically safe. Another thing to think about is if you have a student in there who's on crutches or wheelchair, different things like that. It's also super important to not have distracting items or any distracting areas. I remember as a student, I did not like when teachers' classrooms had like posters everywhere, even if they're pretty and colorful. I just did not like it. So that's one thing I always think about, just making sure everything has a purpose and that it's all clean and orderly, so it doesn't give students too much like exposure. Okay, so that's it for the topic. So now kind of on to like the more questions. What do you see as being the utmost importance of these topics? I think democracy in the classroom, just because it like affects all of them. Like if students have their voice heard, they're more likely to be engaged and be motivated to learn. And if they are invested in like making the rules, they'll be more likely to follow them, which will help with like the preventative measure. So that's why I would say democracy is the most important, but that's just me. My current plans for managing my future classroom, I've already talked about how I want to be like a low to medium control teacher, I think, and so I want students to help create the rules, and I want helper jobs. As far as democracy, I want to have quick morning meetings with my students, then like a longer class meeting where you talk about different topics, like behavior and stuff like that, once a week. And then for interventions, I would just want to practice those procedures, have them from the very beginning of the day, and then I really want to, for discipline, make intrinsic motivation a thing, so having rewards like more reading time or theater games, so they're not always trying to go for candy. So yep, that's it. Thanks.